Hello and welcome. Welcome everyone to the space, to the spaciousness created through so many waves of purification. Space is made to be here right now, to begin to implement what was long ago spoken. True original creation, right order, implementation, structure, configuration. And we are here in this now, talk about, sound about, light about, expression, about structural integrity, light and structural technology, creating through structure new reality. So that's what we're doing now. And we're doing that, of course, being that, doing that through sound and through light. And we're implementing new structural reality through the waves created and spaces made, purification waves, evolution, dissolution. And even in this now, witnessing the collapse of shapes made, thoughts sent, you could say, thought forms, waves, the structural creation of the geometry, and then its reconfiguration if and as and until and unless in total purity. It's reconfiguring to still yet create those spaces for structural implementation, right order, architectural new reality, right? And so before and as we begin discussing that and this, many of you may have heard me discuss this before, and I'll share a brief aside to give some background and also foreground, of course, to the space and the geometry of structural reality and why we're discussing this configuration, new configurations in this now, is that when I was an infant, I was seeing sound. I would feel myself laugh. And as I was not using words, I would feel the laugh and I would see the shape, the geometry, the shape of the sound, right? And what was happening was from there, I was seeing the color and the shape and the wave of that sound expression, not articulating it that way necessarily. However, in those moments, I would laugh harder because it was interesting what I was perceiving, right? So when I would laugh, as I was laughing harder, the shape would elongate, the shape would change, the structural, you could say, integrity was different, right? It was changing. And what was happening through that and through the waves of my evolution is that I started to explore layers of geometry and layers of art that were creating different shapes through the sound. We could say somatics, right? The geometry of the sound. And what was, and of course is happening through sound and through light is that structure that it creates is, right, and can be implemented in its rightful integrity. And through that and through the shape, it's ever continuously waving through the reality, right? That's the somatic pattern that is continuing to wave and create shape and form our experience, our structural integrity, we could say, what we're building through our thought, through the geometry. And so, in those discoveries and evolutions as a child, I was layering sound and the shape, the color, and the wave that I was seeing and sounding. And as I was sounding and seeing, I was layering other shapes over, through, about, taking it apart, layering it again, and seeing what was it creating structurally? What was it creating maybe flat on a sheet of paper, and then creating it into an actual form, 3D form in this reality. And we could say, fast forward through exploration in this now, how that's pertinent to sound and light, and really has always been, right? Sound and light. Creation through sound and light is, and has always been. It's the structural integrity of the purity to create in these simultaneous purification waves and spaces made are next junctures and configurations of the original blueprints, right? So we're going to discuss and dive into that in just a moment. And I welcome you here in this space. What we're doing now, of course, on many waves, structurally, energetically, physically, and through our biology, as we're changing, right? We're upgrading and returning to our original design, our original blueprint, our original geometric template, which means returning to pure luminous state. And what that requires is, of course, the waves we've been experiencing of purification, and also the waves of, you could say, elongation, making more space for what's yet to come. And we're doing that through sound and through light, changing the configurations, changing the biology, changing our structural integrity of our cells, right? We're opening, clearing, expanding, changing, shifting our cells to hold the optimal, pure, luminous light that we are. And we're changing our systems to how we're sensing, how our systems are sensing, filtering, processing information, integrating information through our cells, our cellular structures, through our body, through our bones, through our tissues, through our nervous system, brain, fascia, and through the layers and the waves beyond, and through. And as we're doing that, we're creating the space for what's to be implemented. And how are we doing that? Through our purification waves of our cellular structures and our thoughts, as our thought forms clearing, right? Purified thought creation into structural integration, into creating into pure structure, right? Through sound and through light. And why is that so important right now is that it's time for the next layers and waves of structural change, implementation. And now, in this juncture, can be sustained that which was spoken, right? It's not necessarily that these light structures are new. There's some perception that structures are new. And what it is that what was spoken in its purity and its original integrity can now be instated in its full luminosity, right? That we have the space in the waves through the purifications made to implement the structures of change. Because the earth is changing, right? The locations, mudslides, volcanoes, earthquakes, opening, alignments are changing through the earth, through the core, through the crest. And so that means that all the way through each and every cellular structure of each and every rock, blade of grass, and being, cell, and beyond, and within, is expanding to hold the pure and true light, right? And so in these nows, these current nows, what I'm experiencing in even witnessing, and please leave a comment how you're experiencing in your worlds, right? Is that even those thought forms, the way that I'm and have, we could say have and am seeing thought forms, it's the shape, right? It's the sound, it's the intention, it's the color, it's the tone of that thought, right? And any thought form that I'm witnessing, say, or hearing, perceiving, sensing, however you want to express it, what I'm sensing is that any and all thought forms emitted through the waves, right? You say sound waves, through the waves of the unity field, the allness of everything, even if or as there's any, you could say static, distortion, whatever you want to call it, that thought form in its, you could say creation, the attempt at creation as it's being created collapses onto itself, into itself, back into source, into as, to be reformulated into something different, pure state thought of a different form, different structure, different structural integrity, because it has to and it must, and that's the only thing supported, right? And I'm witnessing this on a vast scale in, conversations, experiences. I'm going to different events, many people with different thought forms, perceptions, and sensing and feeling and watching all these waves of awareness, thoughts, or even projections, right? As they're thought, they will collapse unless or until they're in pure state. Nothing else can hold shape, structure. Nothing can hold shape or take shape unless it has its full integrity, which is source energy. Nothing, no thing. And the waves, in addition, we could say parallel in conjunction to that, is that, of course, those other, any structural creations over, timeline structure, made up timelines, of course, are collapsing onto themselves to be reformulated, make space into something else. However, the fascination and the interesting exploration I'm experiencing is watching those waves of nothing that can be even created as, or if, or unless, or until it is in total right order. So even people speaking, right? How are you watching that? Expression, that tonality, that shape, of course, whether you see that or not, is, a whole nother topic. But what if you can, right? Because you're sensing it. And many people are intuitively sensing more and more moment by moment. Resonance. What is resonance? Is the sound wave, it's the frequency emanation, it's the shape. It is a structural integrity of the light. that shape of the tone, someone's expressing what they're saying, right? So many people, even, I'm witnessing this, watching them in conversation with each other, detecting those subtleties of the tonality and what is actually true harmonic in harmony, right? In resonance. And it's been really fascinating for me too, with this witnessing, going to these different, events and things. I mean, over the years, we could say years, I really haven't been very public, in a lot of places, because I like to maintain my structural integrity, in my innate energetic harmony, right? And up until recently, it's personal share, but also heart to heart share with all of you being here in the space. In this now is that, for many years, we could say, I much rather be with the trees, sing the harmonies. However, in this now, it's important to share the waves of structural information, integrity, description, what is, how things are changing, how we can actually implement these new realities structurally, right? Because this isn't really new information. It is new in the way of comprehension that the only and the every is that the purity and the true harmony and the resonance is what can be so, right? So the fascination is feeling and sensing, say attendees at events, sensing the information being expressed. Is there resonance? Is there soul heart to heart resonance? Because that really is part of the remembrance. A huge part of the remembrance is when somebody feels, is how they know, right? And what is that? Sound and light. And that light in its pure tone is a field of information, structure, structural light, whether you see it, it's emanation, right? What somebody is emanating is a frequency. You could say codes. It's information. Light is a technology. So, what the light is doing, how it's expressing, is creating fields of information through the systems, through all the systems that are filtering, processing, integrating, transmitting, whether anything is said or not. And through that is creating structure. Through me speaking to you is creating structure. If I'm singing, of course, I'm singing is creating somatic structure, form. However, as and when anything is expressed through thought, whether it's said, that shape of the thought, that color, that wave of the harmony, if it's in harmony, only. And if in structural integrity, harmony, purity, will it be so? Will it be actually anchored, implemented, and become part of this whole totality of integrating and building structurally, right? And now that we're becoming aware in remembrance that that is really the only option, is that every ounce of every facet in total purity, thought, spoken, form, shape, geometry, color, tone, structural reality. The only and the everything that will and is to be built so is purity, righteous, right order, integrity, structure. So we can see, we can perceive, we can hear many, many things, right? And whether or not we feel and know the resonance as true for us, we'll know that, right? The hope is that each and everyone is sensing, expanding, sensing, knowing right away what is in resonance and what is true for the totality of what the expression is as source energy, right? Because it'll feel pure, it'll feel true. It'll feel like that shape is taking shape as its true form and its true structural integrity as the one vibrational harmonic wave source energy, right? And so the more and the more that each and every one become aware of that, that even as we're witnessing resonance or even perhaps slight distortion, say within words, within frequencies. I even noticed it this morning when somebody was driving. And of course, I noticed subtleties, perhaps more than some others. But the driving, the tone of the driving down the road, it's like, oh, it feels like it's had some aggression to it. And not necessarily that not making up a story about it, right? But the energy, sensing, right? Whatever it is, subtlety of the energy. That geometry of that structure, right? That truck driving through a pathway, which is what? Structure, pathway, opening, right? And that truck, shape, geometry, right? Energy, frequency, vibration, all of it. Now, that energy, say with even just a slight bit of discordant energy, a little aggression, a little whatever it was like, that, right? No story required. That. So, what happens there is that energy, you could say previously was holding a shape, right? That maybe that aggression or that energy, whatever we want to call it, distortion, would hold a shape, right? To be formed to another shape, holding that form. Would no longer. No, there's no shapes that can hold shape to any distorted energetic to create a shape out of that shape. So as you witness anything out of resonance with true pure frequency and the true and pure harmony, whether it's a word, a thought, an engine, you know, traffic expression, whatever it is, cannot create any more shapes, cannot create any more forms, which means that, say, an event, somebody creating a something on stage, presentation. If it's a presentation, if it's a creation of a story, can't hold shape. Whether or not it has any resonance with anyone or they sense the purity and truth within it, it still won't form that shape of that tone of what's expressed because of its structural integrity or not will just collapse onto itself. It's being witnessed to do so. And by us witnessing that and sensing any resonance, if we do as we do when we do what the resonance is, through the fields of awareness, which is what? Our fields, our energy field, there's fields of information everywhere, right? Morphogenetic field of the road, of the town. Say we're in a building, and we're in a building with a bunch of other people. Everyone has fields of information, right? And how we are sensing, filtering, and processing that information within the field is, based off of energetic resonance, receding perhaps person away or the thing away or the thought form away. It's not becoming known about because there's no resonance, right? And what we're also seeing now, the more we tune into that, the more we are sensing, fine-tuned and sensing our reality is that we're sensing what resonance is. And we're knowing and sensing through the fields of information what is expressed with or without words. So there really is no presentation, right? And that's the thing, is there's no presentation. There is the authentic expression, which really is the point of being here on earth, is to express your soul frequency, which is your innate essence in its purity, in its divinity, which means, and that's why all of these other thought forms and or accumulations anywhere through structure, cellular structure, fields of information falling away, evaporating, being witnessed, resonance, sensing, right? I'm taking a pause intentionally to sense the resonance within your experience. What do you sense and what do you feel? Because that's a structure, right? People or places. Say it's a home, has a resonance, has a structure, and also has fields of information, which are structures in their fields and what they're expressing. And through these waves and returns into our full luminosity, our soul's expression of our unique frequency through sound and through light, through our vibrational velocity, we could say our emanation. We're seeing and sensing that all else in observation, right? We can just observe it. Just observe your environment. See if you can sense the geometry, the configurations, sense the reality, sense that these structural integrities and shapes are changing to make to make space for the new shapes to be implemented, which means full purity and restructuring, creating space for restructuring and connectivity of these other spaces, right? These new configurations where we can look at earth changes, right? We're making space for plates shifting through the vibration of earthquakes, new configurations. Is it really new though? The new configuration, is that really new? It's actually making space for the integration of purity and the correct blueprint, divine blueprint, right? And the correct structural integrity, meaning so other spaces, perhaps, other structures coming apart, making space for the next phases, right? So breathe out for a moment. Pretty massive what's occurring, right? On all layers. Even if we sense into, as we sense into the structural change of cellulars, right? Our cellular function, again, sound and light, changes through the tune and the tone of the wave and the geometry, configuration, somatics, through the sound and the harmonic wave through the earth, right? The frequency of purity is changing our structural integrity of our body. Our bodies are changing, upgrading to hold our full luminosity, which means that our organs, our tissues, our systems are changing. And as that can instantly do so through returning to our pure state, pure frequency, that through the waves is also changing everywhere we stand, right? Everywhere we breathe. Because look at the breath. Just for a moment. Take a breath and feel the geometry and the structural integrity of a pure breath. Breathing in pure light, pure energy, right? It's breathing that in. Breathing it in and through the pure luminosity of the vessel, breathing and beating and emanating its own sheer tone, frequency, emanation, which is what? Reflecting that too and about and before all others in the reality, in the physicality, on the earth, where you stand, where you reside, where you breathe and beat the earth, where your heart breathes and beats itself. And breathes and beats the earth and all the constellations, all of the galaxies, breathing all of the systems, right? Sense that for a moment. Breathing all of the planetary bodies, all of the stars in purity, luminosity, emanating their full capacity through the galaxies. And the dogs are barking, breathing their full reality, right? Breathing and sensing and beating that geometry, the configuration, right? The configuration of the constellations in full purity. Breathing your full luminosity all the way through all the galaxy, through the multiverse, through and into all of cosmology, all and nothing into the grand infinity. Right? Breathing, beating, breathing, beating, breathing, that pure luminosity. And also reflecting that through all of your cellular technology, all of your cellular functionality, all of your systems in full resonance, full harmony. Sense that centered, harmonic, coherent, vibratory reflectionality to and through all petals, right? On this blooming new earth garden. New earth, we could say frequency. It's not really new, it's returned to purity. Cellularly, microcosmically, macro into infinity. And throughout all of the cellular waves and purity through all of the forms, all the filaments, in all of the geometry, through all of the sound waves, full resonance, full purity. And even that resonating, its luminosity, its sound, its expression in full purity. And that's what we're doing in our being now, is remembering as each and as everyone, through resonance, through reflection, through emanation of ourselves, returning to ourselves, beating ourselves, source energy. We are beating and we're breathing. We're beating and we're breathing, being and beating. And we're witnessing anything, anywhere, reconfiguring itself through structural change, collapse, reforming, coming apart, collapse, reconfiguration, right? No storyline, just resonance, purity, velocity, forming into different reality, right? Back, you could say back, there's no times. Into and as the divine orchestration, resonance, illumination, in true harmonic creation, is anchoring into and as pure state, vibrating, reflecting its pure state to all others. Feeling that resonance, right? Structure, feeling the structure of the geometry, the shape of the form, reflecting to each other in form through fields of information, frequency, purity, remembrance. Oh, right? Through those thought form waves. And the magnification and the amplification of all these thought form waves, shifting into purity. The oh yeah, remembrance, structural integrity, implementing into right order, construction, reintegration, divine blueprint, instating all the way through and from, yeah. Within structurally, cellular function, functionality, shifting, changing the way, that way, into space is made to create and connect now different arrangements and arrays and configurations of reality. Structural integration of new structures, crystalline facets in harmony, purity, in divine luminosity. It's what we're experiencing now. Through resonance, reflection, integration, anchoring. Through this discussion, this energy, resonance, frequency, geometry, expression is actually opening the pathways of purity through the geometry of the word, the thought, the word that creates shape and structure, right? Word creates, thought creates structure. And now in and as in purity into new structural reality. So we're here experiencing that in reflection within each and every one of you in the field, in the space, and also in and through the field of the earth, the core of Gaia, all the way in and through the core and the essence, the earth. As we take a moment to honor that, honor you for being here in this space, in resonance, reflection, experience, undulation, expansion. coming together in union through our transition in these spaces made. Feel called to share an integration of some sound and some light expression as I change the sound settings to express correctly through expression and resonance. There we go. Share sound waves to integrate the expression, sound through light, structural change, appreciation, gratitude, energy, exchange, shapes, implementation, purity. All that was spoken is integrating now through all the shapes and the spaces made into right order, divine orchestration, divine opportunity, even as shapes, spaces, words expressed now that are witnessed and forming, reforming, collapsing, reconfiguring into new shapes. I could say new shapes, pure shapes, forming, right? Reintegrating into our reality, into purity, pure state, resonance, return, reflection, implementation. All of the blueprints, divine implementation. Kusunu puaya pai kokunu shukia titayo, from the very center. Within the very center, the center, into all of infinity, into the all and the nothing of the grand luminosity of source, essence, purity. Into and as all structural integrity, spaces being made, spaces being made for new structural reality through creating the shapes, through letting go of the shapes and the forms of what was created, now restructured in its own collapse, space, through sound of the infinite, creating new space of purity. For purity, as purity, divinity. Allowing all of the space to be filled with a pure luminosity, divine luminous integrity. purity, right? Order, orchestration, implementation. Hey. Toshokumo kuno kumaya mayokaya masito kipaya pai kushukumu tusunkumpai kai. Sokomoto no shomoko ayamaya sinahi kai misokoto no ku 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 ku. Allowing the space all the shapes to take form in their original expression, soul essence, pure harmonic, source, wave, spark, all space. For all the sound, all the sounds that have ever been spoken, thoughts ever been created, that are reshaping themselves into pure tones, pure geometry, pure templates, configuration. Allowing all the space for the reorder, reconstruction, structuring, restructural implementation, space. Allowing the space for the reflection, all the spaces that everyone needs in their own spaces, in their cellular functions, spaces, cellular systems, nervous system, brain, tissue, neuron, for reconfiguration, space to hold the luminosity and the brilliance, all the space, the vastness, purity that you are. As we take this moment to allow the spaciousness to integrate into all the cellular structures that have changed and are changing through the waves and the reflections, and the harmonies and the rhythm, cushions. We give gratitude. Gratitude and grace through the space. Space is made. Into and as the space made for full expression for each and every one. To remember and embody their full luminosity, their brilliance, and their full resonant harmony in these next phases, structural changes, reconfiguration through the spaces made. I thank everyone for tuning in this space during this huge transformational, transitional juncture of great change, implementation, reconfiguration, divine orchestration. It's been a pleasure sharing space here in this now. Wishing everyone so much alignment, so much love. And I will see you soon in the bye.